Okay, so it is July the 13th, 2023. It's about 4:10 in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time here in Central Indiana. Today I want to talk briefly about a customer's payment that was supposedly processed via Zelle that is MIA, or it's in the air, or it's in the cloud, or it didn't happen. I don't know. I'm going to share with you what I'm going through right now with this client. This is a good customer. She's an older lady. She's a widow. I have no reason to not believe that she has initiated a payment, but the reality is I don't have anything. And since last year, when I got started with her at the start of the season, she has paid me via Zelle. I like Zelle because in most cases it's instant, and there's no fee associated. What's weird about Zelle sometimes is someone can make a payment to you, and I'll get a notice to me. I get a notice today via email and or text, such and such made a Zelle payment to you for $50. But sometimes it takes 8 days for that to be processed. And the crazy thing about that is, in the case where it's processed on the 8th day or any day thereafter, once it's processed, then my bank ledger through JP Morgan Chase will say that the monies were deposited to my account today, the date that I got the notice. Even though it wasn't in my account, it didn't reflect a holding balance or anything like that. It just says I have had access to it all this time. And that's a bit of a problem. Also, briefly, last year I had a customer who paid me every week via Zelle, and at the end of the season, I happened to accidentally, I was going through my Zelle payments, and it said see details under each transaction. I was like, what is that? So I clicked it, and it says processed, or it gives me the details when it was processed. But on this one customer, I noticed on one payment, it said recalled or something to that nature, and it was in red. And then it had a minus in the payment. I was like, wait a minute. So I went down on several others well, I went through all of my transactions at that point in time, but I had several others from that particular client that were pulled. JP Morgan Chase did not tell me. They didn't send me an email, a letter in the mail. I didn't get a phone call or a text, and it didn't even reflect in my ledger that monies were taken out. They just took it out. That's what they do. So watch your Zelle. Every month, go back, log in, and see the details and make sure it hasn't been pulled out. So on this particular customer that I'm dealing with now, she pays me via Zelle. She's an older customer. She's a widow. She's a good person. I have no reason to believe that she didn't initiate the payment. I just don't have it. And for everything I know, maybe she did everything right, and it just got lost. I can tell you that earlier this year, I had a similar situation. Actually, not a similar situation. An older customer I've had for a few years, paid me via Zelle, but she put the wrong phone number in there, kept insisting that she sent it to me. After she did some research, she discovered she sent it to the wrong person. So I got paid eventually, but until she noticed that, I was the wrong guy. I was bad. I can't believe you did this, Joshua. I paid this and you're not crediting my account. What kind of business are you running? That's what I do. So on the current customer, long story short, I recently sent her an invoice for 3 mowings. Joshua, I made a payment on this date. The invoice should reflect that. I don't have that payment. Well, I made that payment on there. It's not in my ledger. Well, you need to call your bank. I said, ma'am, not only do I have an executive book that shows the payments that I have received, it's not in the online ledger. I don't need to call the bank because it's not on there. They're going to tell me that it's not in there. I'm looking at it. So the next day comes and she calls me and says, yeah, Joshua, they gave me a transaction number. Here it is. She said, you can look it up. Ma'am, I can't look it up. It's not here. That's a transaction number that's listed for your bank. It has nothing to do with mine. She says, well, Joshua, I processed it. You'll need to call your bank and find out where it's at. That's not really how it works. But ma'am, I actually humored you. I called the bank. They told me what I already knew. It's not in the account. Well, I don't know what to say. I paid it and it's there, and you're still invoicing me for it. You need to credit my account. Time out. Let's say I have a mortgage and it's due on the 1st of every month. The due date is the 1st of every month, meaning if they don't have my payment by the 1st, I am late. And oftentimes they'll charge a late fee and the additional interest because the principal isn't reduced as it's supposed to be on the scheduled payment calendar. What I cannot do is initiate an e-payment online, meaning that an electronic check is cut to my mortgage company. The monies are immediately deducted from my account because they won't send out a live check if the monies aren't there. And let's say there's a blizzard and it takes 2 weeks to get there. And, they call me on the 2nd, like, hey, we're calling for your payment. You didn't make it. I can't say, hey, I sent it through Chase, through the United States Postal Service. If you don't have it, that's between you and the United States Postal Service. You need to call them. You need to figure it out. That's not how it works. I'm the one that has the burden of tracking that down. They don't know that I'm telling the truth. People try to pull this crap all the time. They get slick. They think that they're slick. And I don't know if this is a generational thing or whatever. People have lost their minds when it comes to due dates. Due dates don't mean you mail in your payment that day. The due date means I have to have that money by that date. Otherwise, there's a late fee applied to it. And then you've got interest on it, because that's how my contracts are set up. So long story short, her account, she said, I don't understand why I'm being invoiced. I told you, Mrs. Customer, I haven't received the payment. I said, for what it's worth, I'm not mad at you. I'm not applying late fees. I'm not going to sue you. I'm a patient person. I value you specifically as a customer. If it takes 6 months to figure it out, that's okay. Time typically has a way of working these things out. So where we're at right now is we have a payment that's MIA, supposedly. She's given me a transaction number, and I believe her. She won't tell me her bank that she banks with, or hasn't yet. So I don't have anything else to go off of. There's nothing that I can do. But it's not my responsibility to chase down that information. It's not my responsibility to call your bank, or even my bank for that matter. Although I did ask my bank about it, and again, they told me what I already knew. It's not in there. Sometimes the older customers are very easily confused by technology. And I'm not hating on older customers, because younger customers, some do it too. It's just that as generations age, in some way the older generation disconnects from the newer stuff that's going on. It's just the reality. Okay, so anyway, on the Zelle issue that I dealt with last year, I want to talk about this briefly. I found out by accident that numerous payments from a specific customer had been recalled. They didn't tell me why, and I got no notice of it, but I accidentally found out because one day I was logged on and I was looking at all my Zelle payments, and it said see details under each Zelle payment. I was like, what is that? So I clicked it, and it gave like a reference number and everything. But on the first one of this customer from last year that didn't pay me, or that the monies were pulled out, it said money recalled. I'm like, wait, what? And it was in red and minus whatever the payment was. Like, that's odd. So I went down to her next payment, the same thing. And this was the case for like 10 payments over the course of 2.5 months. Now, how in the world they do that after the monies have been deposited into my account is beyond me. How in the world they do that without notifying me is beyond me. And JP Morgan Chase, as of right now, has provided me with no answers. In fact, I went into the bank yesterday, and they don't understand why. The banker told me, yeah, I know it's a problem. Well, you can fix it. Fix the problem. How am I supposed to randomly just magically know that you took money from my account? Anyway, technology is great, guys, when it works. What I want you to take from this, create an executive book if you haven't already. An executive book is a transaction book for all the payments that you receive. And in each row, you're going to have the date the payment was received, the name of the customer that sent it in, the invoice number, the amount, the method that the payment was made. Was it cash? Was it check? Was it Zelle? Was it credit card or whatever? The date that you entered it into whatever accounting program that you have. Then a date when you know that your accounting program has actually had another date, like a day or two down the road, that you know that it's in there still. And then finally a date that you see it on your bank statement whenever you get it. Because I'm telling you, what I have noticed in several transactions, and recently, and even more so last year, is the bank has a magical way of making stuff go poof. Not telling you about it. And when I was growing up, before all this technology was available, we carried around something called a checkbook. And every time you wrote down a check, you wrote down the date and knew who it was, and you would balance the checkbook. So you always knew where you're at. You always knew where you were at. Anyway, that's it. Guys, I hope that you find value in this video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. If you're still watching 9 minutes in, that helps me, because hopefully one day YouTube will start paying me for these videos. Anyway, peace.